Okay, so I wanted to go over some feedback for your BMW cards and give you guys some constructive feedback. I also wanted to kind of keep it short and sweet. I know you don't want to be listening to me for like 40 minutes, so I'll try to keep it short and also informative. So we'll get right into it. We'll start with Natasha's here. Here we have her first one and her second one. Very simple, minimal, very sort of classic BMW. My suggestions here would be to double check. It looks like your fitting is good. I would just make sure that you're not cropping any of the free space that we talked about, or I talked about in the video. The assignment information video, and it looks like you are safe there. Sorry, I keep clicking around or sweeping around, making everybody dizzy. So we'll start with this one. I think some relatively minor tweaks maybe to give it a little bit more sort of classic, refined BMW look would be maybe just like ride in style, have that I capitalized, and then you could have like with the new active hybrid X6 like down at the bottom, or even just, you know, all new, or, you know, new active hybrid X6, you know, even get rid of the just, you know, super simplify it to go to some like super classic BMW-ish looks. And you could either enlarge the ride in style or place it, you know, off to the left, or rather the right here. You know, you could play around with your placement a little bit, but don't be afraid to break up that text and you know, really simplify and give it, you know, super clean look. Because remember, these things theoretically would be in someone's hand and they're being direct marketed, so it's not just like standard junk mail. You know, so you have a little bit more reading time, you know, you can get a little bit more creative. You know, I would say somewhat of a similar thing here. You kind of have two headlines going. I would decide which is going to be your headline, and really push that. So if you wanted your adventure is out there, you know, have that be larger at the top, and then, you know, maybe down here meet the new active hybrid X6, or even smaller, you know, right justified over here. You know, just decide what is going to be your headline. And I might go, just trying to see what font this was as my computer decides to not cooperate. Okay, Arial. You know, I might go with a bolder Arial for one, or go to Helvetica or something like that, but I would go with maybe a bold for whatever's going to be your headline, and even a regular for what's going to be your sub-headline or your subtext. But again, you know, decide, you kind of have two headlines going here, decide which one is going to be your headline and really push that. The other thing you want to be aware of is to make sure that your bleed extends all the way to here. I know that this particular photo is a little bit tricky, but you could even do like a copy and paste, and you see I just kind of like did the option move, you know, to sort of cheat. I used to do this all the time in my old job. We used to have to kind of cheat our borders, so even if you had like that and then moved one, oops, as I'm moving it all over the place, I have to move my frames. So you're getting the general idea. You know, you can kind of extend your frame here, push that to the back, and you get the idea. You can move this one over to the right, so you get a little bit of an overlap. You know, you can kind of see, sometimes you can kind of see where that image on the edge here sort of repeats, but with something like this, it'd be, you know, too fine to tell. And also, it's in your bleed anyway, so you wouldn't probably notice it because it would get trimmed a little bit anyway. But overall, I think a really good start. Some minor tweaks. I think you have a good classic sort of BMW look going. Nice work. So you're going to pick one of these. I should have said that from the beginning. All of you are going to pick one of your designs to refine for your resubmission, for your final. My fan is going crazy again, and I apologize if you guys can hear that. Let's go into Caroline's. So, well, I feel that there's definitely some good things happening here. There's a few issues with this. Your sizing is off for sure, because it's a little bit more square than the others, so you got to make sure that you have the sizing correct. I only saw one design. There's supposed to be two, but let's get into some of the details here. So the shot you picked overall isn't too bad. I kind of like what you have going on, and I see what you're trying to do with the BMW logo and the sun here. I was trying to remember his name, J.D. Abrams lens flare you have going. And I see what you're doing, but this was a big no-no that we talked about. You can see if I click on the image, you can see where the border of your image is. You're not supposed to crop into that white space or black space respectively. That white square or black square is part of the logo, and they want that to be free space, so we're not supposed to be encroaching on that. So if you were to have that there, you would, and have it, your frame be the same size, you would want it to be like essentially like that. So it was somewhat of a similar look. I see what you're trying to do there. I don't know if it really works for what you wanted. You know, I might even suggest moving it to the bottom corner, bottom right. I just kick it in a little bit up and left of the safe zone there. But the first, after the logo, the first sort of problem I see is that we don't know what we're selling here. So you definitely need a mention of like the model. You know, we have the make, obviously it's BMW, but you want to have like the model, you know, what is the product you're selling. And I think I see the idea here again. I think it's a little tough to read even with the stroke on it. I think that the serif font in this case doesn't work as well. It's also not exactly going with BMW's aesthetic. I would definitely switch to, you know, I'm gonna just try to change it here if it lets me. Let's go with like a Helvetica bold oblique, and then you'll see the idea. You know, already it's easier to read. We'll make your, you know, let's get lost in the moment. Again, I know you guys are really early with this. It's a little bit, I guess, clunky for lack of a better word, like sometimes refining or simplifying. Some of these headlines takes a little bit of work. So even getting rid of the lets, you know, I would just go with get lost in the moment. And then, you know, again, either go all uppercase, lowercase, title case. I wouldn't go all lowercase. It's generally not something that they do. You know, even all uppercase, or if you did title case, you can change it here under change case. And again, as my computer sort of freezes, this is not ideal. Okay, there we go. So we can just change it to uppercase if you want, or even title case. And this will also allow you to make it a little bit bigger as well if you wanted to. You know, and we can move it over to the right a little bit, and you might not even need the stroke on it at that point. Yeah. So you might not even need the stroke on at that point. I would play with it and decide if that's something that you would want to do. And then you could even put the, you know, all new active hybrid X6, whatever, however you wanted to put the model information down in the bottom left. You know, give yourself a little bit of balance with text in the upper right, text in the bottom left, you know, things like that. So there's a couple things that you can do, or a few things that you can do to refine your design here. Again, get that sizing on point. Work a little bit with the text, work a little bit with your headline. Definitely make sure you mention that the product, the model that we're selling. All right, we'll move on to Amy's. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and don't mind the question marks. That's just because I didn't relink. I chose not to relink the images just to keep everything hopefully running a little bit more snappy as my fan is cranking. I just decided not to relink the photos. I will when I look at your finals, or when we take a look at them in general. Anyway, I think overall you have a really good thing happening here. I like how you have the white block, almost a third, those rule of thirds designs we have going with the image, and then your blocks of detail shots. I think I might try to lighten up see how it works. I might try to lighten up the drop shadows a little bit. They might be a little bit heavy. And then especially here, I see what you're trying to do there with the drop shadow and having it look a little bit more readable. Sort of a similar thing, I might go with a bolder font, a little bit bolder, a little bit bigger. But the simple headline, sheer driving pleasure, new active hybrid X6 works really well. I might try to see if you go a little bit bolder, if you'll need the drop shadow. If not, maybe softening that drop shadow. In the effects, you can soften your drop shadow a little bit, make I forget what they actually call it, but the spread or the feather. It's not feather, but the spread or the width of the drop shadow. Maybe soften it a little bit, and the same thing for the drop shadows here. And then again with the logo, we want to make sure that we're not cropping out at all. So you can either decide to have your frame extend, fit the frame. I just messed it up. Well, let's go back a few steps. So how you're going to decide fit the content to the frame, or fit frame to content, or fit image, etc. But you want to make sure that you have that whole piece showing there. As I go into the safety, you want to make sure too your car is encroaching a little bit on the safety there. You still have some room definitely to move it over a little bit, not too far, mind you. You might even be able to get away with making it a touch smaller, maybe not, depending on the vertical room you have there. But again, on the logo, work on the headline a little bit, the sizing. I might even try flipping your design so you have the white on the right, just to see how it looks, and have the car pointing the other way, or even just have the front of the car still facing this way, just to see. Maybe even make these a touch smaller and spread them out a little bit, give them a little bit more breathing room, like you have the room on the sides here. But overall, really well done. Again, I see what you did here. I like this idea, giving yourself something to work with to have a background there. I don't think the drop shadow is necessary. Again, I would say for this one, make sure that you're pushing that. To make sure that you're pushing that. There we go. Pushing that headline. I had my text was enabled for some reason. And you could even make this shape larger. Push that if you wanted to. Even push this more. Make sure that if you want this to bleed off the edge, make sure it goes all the way to the bleed. Same thing with your image there. Make sure that your image is hitting that bleed, so that we have that full image, just in case it gets cut. I might even try playing around with. This is going to look awkward, but when you see it in print, maybe have it bleed off the top. And then you can play with your. There we go. Your text a little bit. Make it. I'm not going to do it, but make it larger, smaller, a little bit more bold, etc. Have your sheer driving pleasure here. Have this, maybe not extend this far, but have it come off both edges, and then the same with the bottom text. Really pushing that so that bleed was off the bottom, and it doesn't. It can go over the bleed. It just has to at least extend to the bleed. But this way, so you have like that graphic, balancing balancing the top right and the bottom left again. Really sort of push that weight and balance. And again, I would look into the logo, making sure that we're not cropping, etc. All that fun stuff. I think it's a really solid start here with either of these two. Just some minor things to play around with, potentially, depending on which one you decide to go with. All right. And moving on to Abigail. So, And then here, I don't have this font, which is not that big of a deal. So that's why that's showing up as pink. And again, the question marks with the non-linked photos. Again, I really like the use of the detail shots in this, especially with such a wide shot you have here. And I really like these graphics that you have. Again, just make sure that your image extends to the bleed here, because if it shifts, you're going to have like a white space, in printing if it shifts left to right. I talked about in the video with the bleed and trim. So this extends to the trim, but you want to make sure that everything extends to the bleed. The same thing with these graphics you have. And then also your logo looks good. Doesn't look like you're cropping it at all, but I would definitely make it bigger. I know this is a big card, but it kind of disappears a little bit. I know that's something like a client would say. They always want their logo to be bigger, but you can see it's not even an inch by an inch. So that's a little bit, they're going to definitely want it bigger than that. And I would come up with a sort of a headline. I like what you have going. I like that you have a little bit of, informational text here, but you do have hybrid X6. I think this might be a little too much, 3 times in here. So I think that, refining this informational section a little bit, introducing the new active hybrid X6. BMW has combined luxury with sport. You could even maybe even take this out and have, combining luxury with sport, or some kind of play on that as your headline here. And then you could have introducing the new active hybrid X6 as like your headline in here, or rather, sorry, your sub headline in here about this size. And then that could free up a little bit of space to have this be your headline. And then for your headline, I would mind your fonts. Make sure that you're using more sort of a BMW-ish font that they would generally classically use. Again here, really good use of graphics. I like this strong blue background you have, matching, aligning with the blue of the car. Same thing, I really like the insets in this case. They're not details. But again, I would work on some sort of headline, even if it's here, or switch maybe the logo and have your headline be at the top, but having your tagline, we'll call it, instead of a headline, somewhere. Oops, as I make this go way off the page, have your headline either somewhere at the top or somewhere at the bottom, and then you could have your introducing the new BMW active hybrid X6 here, so that'll give you a little bit more space to make that a little bit bigger. But again, you have, in this case, your blue is great. It goes to the edge, it goes to the bleed, but you want to make sure that you have your image go to the bleed as well, so you might have to resize and play around with that a little bit, but you want to make sure that your image is extending to the bleed on both of those sides as well. But overall, I think pretty strong work. All right. We'll go to Victoria, and again, I only see one design. I checked the pages. I don't see anything else. We'll talk about what you have, and I don't know. Let me see if I view your. Yeah, I'm not seeing your setup. For your guides and grids, I should have for your sizes and to make sure that your safety and your bleed is, and you have a white background, but I need to make sure that I see that your guides and your bleed and everything is set up properly. But we'll talk about the content. I like the details. I might make it a little bit smaller. Maybe try to even this out, give them a little bit room to breathe in between the images. I like the use of the different colors. The command attention headline works. Again, we got to watch the logo, make sure we're not cropping it. I'm just doing this as a default. Make sure we're not cropping all that space. I think it's a bit text heavy. I like the idea of what you have with the white space and the inset shots here versus, you know, your information. I think it's a bit heavy. I think what you could do if you wanted to sort of push that, you know, not to sort of bite off of somebody else's piece, but what you could do is even make these a little bit bigger. Oops. Tried to grab all of this and it didn't work. You know, see, we should be using the scale tool rather than how I'm doing it, but let's see if that grabbed everything, and of course it didn't. Anyway, making this a little bit bigger, you know, even if you wanted to leave that frame, so you want to make sure that you have the white space along with your bleed. I would honestly get rid of pretty much all this text, because that you could save for the back. You know, BMW typically in their designs isn't so text heavy with just the image, but this gives you room to make this image a little bit bigger. As I was looking for my scale tool here, there we go. So even if you were to scale all of this, let's say, as it's not working for me here, 125, maybe a little bit more, a little less, you'll, oops, get the general idea. We'll hit OK. You know, so you can kind of keep that white space going if you wanted to. You know, and adjust your frame accordingly. Let's grab the frame of the image here. You know, you could have something like that just to do it like quick and dirty there, but you know, and even have it butt up against, or even have a little bit of white space, make it a little bit smaller, you know, if you wanted to have that. And then I would have, you know, command attention. You know, again, I would go with maybe a little bit more of a BMW-ish, bolder. I mean, I know that's pretty bold, but you know, like look at the difference between that and like Helvetica or even Arial at that point. But you can get rid of, you know, all of this, and then have, you know, something like that if you wanted to play around with breaking things up, etc. You know, have some overlaps, make sure you're within that safe area, etc. If you wanted to give it a little bit more dynamic motion rather than sort of blocks. And you can see how getting rid of some of that text really frees it up and gives it more space. But I would definitely play with things like that for this. It's a good start, a little bit text heavy. Check your sizing for your bleed and safety and all that. Make sure all of your items and all of your content works within that. But I think overall a good start. All right. So going on to Lilybeth here. So we talked about text heavy, and again, this is very text heavy. You know, again, I think I like the idea of just the clean single shot, and I think I'll get to it when I get to it, but I think here this might be a little bit distorted, so be careful that we're not distorting images. Again, make sure that we're not cropping. There we go. Make sure we're not cropping our sorry, I'm trying to select and there we go. Make sure we're not cropping, and you can see where we see the safety and the trim and the bleed here. You know, make sure that our images are extending to that bleed. If you want them to go all the way to the edge after it's cut, you want to make sure that it hits that bleed. So here I think I see the idea where you have this information, again, something like as heavy informational as this might go on like the back of a card rather than like the front. You know, I might see if I can pull something out of here, but you know, think about like the classic BMW stuff with the, you know, big, bold, simple headline here, and then, you know, your model, make and model here. You know, I think again, you have a good start with both of these. It's basically the same kind of feedback for this one. You know, you have that strong image. You just need a strong headline or a strong tagline to go with it, and along. Make sure that we're definitely including that model information. But I think with both of these, you can really simplify. Again, with both, make sure that you're hitting that bleed. If you want it to go all the way to the edge when it's cut, make sure that your images go all the way to that bleed, and make sure that we're not distorting. I was trying to look at the percentage here to see if we can tell. I don't. Yeah, so 73. So this is definitely stretched a little bit. So you want to make sure that you're not distorting the product. Basically, clients do not enjoy that. But yeah, I think here you can just simplify. Make sure that your logos are not being cropped. Make sure that your images go to the bleed. And then again, I think a more simple headline, simple tagline, model, make a model, etc. And I think you'll be well on your way. Moving on to John's. And I had 2 copies of this for some reason, and I wasn't sure if there was a difference. I didn't really see a difference between the 2 files, so if there is, please let me know. But I'll give you feedback based on these. This one, again, I think is a really good start. I like people using some detail inset shots to create multiple views. I like that a lot. I might stagger these a little bit. Switch placement, maybe. I'll move this over a little bit so I can grab this one. Switch your placements. So you have like, I know this isn't exactly perfect, but so you have like car shot, detail shot, car shot, or 3 details if it's really going to be details, or have one other alternative shot and then two details. But I think having the 2 insets and a detail, I think you either need to decide have more details than full-ish shots. I'm kind of babbling now. You gotta get the idea. I would put in two detail shots and one other view shot there. So I really like how you have it's not about the drive, it's about the feeling. Again, maybe work with your images a little bit to maybe even drop that down, and then you can have this title be a little bit bigger. Even drop these down in size or play around with placement, and then you can have it's all about the feeling a little bit larger. Again, make sure we're definitely squishing the logo here. Make sure that we're not distorting the logo at all. That's going to make it like massive, but you get the idea. Oops, as I just moved it all over the place. So you want to make sure that you're not distorting. So either like I did with the last one, if you grab these, you want to make sure that you're scaling rather than, and in this case, I'll go 80%, maybe even 75 or 60%, give or take. So then this way you have room to still have your logo there. You're not cutting it off. You're not distorting. Definitely make sure that you're not, you're scaling. I generally use the scale tool just to make sure that I'm not accidentally distorting. Making the vertical different than the horizontal, etc. So you get the idea. Again, here you're going to want to make sure that this goes all the way to the bleed. If you want it, you have an extra frame I think in there too. A few. So you want to make sure, I can't click it because that's in the way. There we go. So you want to make sure you have some room. You might need to make this a little bit bigger. You might need to make this bigger and then have your BMW logo in this bottom right, and then have it's all about the feeling in the bottom left. But you want to make sure that your image goes all the way to the edge, to the full bleed, to make sure that, again, we don't have that mistake in cutting. Similar thing here. Make sure that this goes to the bleed, and you can see already here with the 2 details and the alternative shot, since this is a rear shot, you have the alternative front shot, which is great, and the 2 details I think work really well. You just want to make sure that, I think this might be a little distorted, so you want to make sure that you're not distorting that, again, not distorting the logo. And then even here, the road, it's waiting, take it, even make it bigger here. or even offset it, you know, somewhere in here. But I would definitely make that bigger, bolder, definitely more set. You know, even if you wanted to be a little bit, you know, offset with it, make it larger, but definitely make that really stand out. You want to make sure your headline really pops out. You could even make these a little bit smaller and have it over here. You could even stagger it on each line and have like the road and then offset a little bit, it's waiting, offset a little bit, take it. So you have this kind of like step thing going. So you have like a group of 3 here, you can have a group of 3 stepping down here. And then again, make sure that we're not distorting that logo, make sure we're not distorting the picture. But I think overall, really good start with both of these. I think either one of these with tweaks, you know, could be super successful. All right, going on to Carly number 1 here. All right, so here's an excellent use of the white to create, you know, you use your drawing board to create the bleed, so you don't have to worry about having this image go all the way to the bleed, because you do have this white border, which will extend when it's output. It'll extend, so you'll just have whatever substrate, whatever you're printing this on. You know, if it's blue stock, then it would be blue, etc. You know, super clean. Again, I might, well, you don't really have the room to move it over a little bit. I think this might be a little bit tight. I might try these actually in the upper right, and I see what you did. I like what you did here with the what BMW sometimes does here with the 2 different boxes. I might try doing something like that, even moving this over. So what I'm doing here is I'm just selecting the background and then holding shift and select, so I easily select our, oops, and I see, as I say easily select, that I missed the text. Let's try that again and make sure we select everything. There we go. So I'm going to move this over as I miss the frame. I'm really showing you guys how to do this properly, right? Okay, now I know I have everything, and then I'm going to not twist it. I'm going to grab all this. I might try doing it like this, was the whole purpose of doing that. You know, upper left, or left, upper right, to give it a little bit more breathing room. It was a little bit crowded here. I think you could try making the logo in your text box a little bit smaller, but I think it might be a little too small at that point. And then I would maybe refine this headline a little bit. I like it. It's a little bit wordy. Maybe even breaking it up so you have, like, by the time the imitators come along, and you could have the X6 is long gone. You want to make sure you have the full model in there, though, the active hybrid X6, which makes it a little bit more wordy, but you want to make sure that you have it all in there. But even separating this into 2 different lines might give you, you know, you do have room to move this image up a little bit, you know, so it's not right on top of the text or that. So you could even have the X6, active hybrid X6 down at the bottom here, and that might give you a little bit more freedom to make your text a little bit bigger, a little bit more easy to read. But yeah, I really like what you did, and creating that secondary box was really well done. So let's move on to your second one. Again, super clean. I think that this works a lot better stacked vertically. You could even try it in the upper left, or even stacked horizontally in the upper left. Let me see where we are with this. So yeah, we have plenty of, if you wanted to, this is a tricky image to work with. I get what you did there. Oh yeah, I see, it's kind of awkward. I was gonna see if I had more room at the bottom there. You could even go, the X6 possesses a style. I'm trying to think of, like, you could have, like, possess a style unlike anything. You know, try to refine. I like that headline. I like the idea of the headline, but try to refine it a little bit more. So you could have, like, this is still kind of clunky, but possess a style unlike anything. I think, I'm not sure you need the else, and you could have that large in white like up in this area, and then have, you know, the all new, or you have the active hybrid X6 here. So you have your product line in the bottom right. I think two really strong starts, some sort of minor tweaks, and I think it would work super well. All right, Andrew. So again, I like the idea here. Again, we want to make sure we're using only the images that I gave you, the two logos that I gave you. I see what you're going with the kind of sort of color theme you have happening here. But yeah, you want to make sure that you're using either the black or the white logo that was provided, and make sure that you're not cropping it at all. Make sure that you're not, you know, going right to the rondelle. You want to make sure that you're showing that negative space, that which is either white or black, respectively. I also don't think this is an image that I provided. I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure it's not. So we want to make sure that we're only using images provided. That being said, I think the layout is decent. I think the font choice could be changed to go with more of a sans serif font rather than a serif font to go with what BMW does. So we have, you know, you could have, again, refine this and have like send a bold message of power and prestige as your headline, and then have your, you know, you have your X6 a few times. You want to make sure it's the active hybrid X6. You don't really need the sports activity coupe, but make sure we have exactly what the product is from the text I give you. And I think, again, you kind of have it 3 times there, so it's a little bit overkill. So where you could refine your headline a little bit here, have it go across, same-ish placement, but you could have it on one line, simplify it a little bit, and then have this be a little bit smaller, but have your active hybrid model information. And definitely make sure that we're using images that are provided, and make sure that we're not cropping that logo. Again, a similar thing here. Definitely make sure I see what we're doing, but definitely make sure that you're not cropping. You know, you want to have that logo, like, even that works. So technically, even though you have this white outside of the black with a red stroke, you're still not inside this black, so that would be fine. We want to make sure that we're not cropping that logo. And again, here I would sort of do a similar thing, reverse your placement, kind of, the athletic and powerful, blah blah blah. You know, you could simplify that and have like athletic, powerful, or even lead with impressive performance or something like that, and have that be your headline at the top, and then have your model information down here at the bottom. Again, I would think about your font choice, and does it really sort of work with the BMW aesthetic. Make sure that we're matching the client aesthetic there, but I think sort of simplifying, refining, making that headline a little bit more BMW, and then have your model info at the bottom right here would work really well. And then Abigail Watson here. A little bit of a different approach. I like it. I would, again, make sure, and you're not, good use of the, so this is a good use of using that negative space, that white space. I see what you're doing. I like the idea of having, you know, the rondelle. They probably would want to have a black stroke, or, you know, a black sort of separating it a little bit, so that you know that that square is there, because 9 times out of 10 they usually have that actual square there. So I might even suggest using the black logo in this case, and have that, even if you had the black, you know, right up against this edge, even right in the corner, have it right up against that edge, right up against this edge and this edge, and then you could even have, you know, a black bleed. Again, you want to make sure that you're showing your bleed and your trim, so I know where it is. But if you wanted to move it over, so you had, you know, cheat a little bit and have like a black extend on the right and the bottom, so you have this sort of graphic element almost bracketing it. The new active hybrid X6. I might try switching these the placement of these. So you have, you know, the active hybrid X6 up here, and then just wait until you're inside down at the bottom. And then that way it's also on one line. It's a little bit awkward with it being on two lines here. Even, maybe, come on. I don't know if you have a return there. You might have a return there. Yeah. So even having, you know, having that on one line looks a little bit less awkward there, but I might try switching those and see how that looks. You know, I think it'll still read well, and that way you have your tagline. We won't say headline, but your tagline at the bottom. But yeah, I like the use of having that sort of white space at the bottom work really well. Again, I would make sure we need to see your trim and your bleed to make sure that you're pushing this image. You definitely have room, but to make sure that you're pushing this image to the bleed for sure, and then also making sure that all of your important elements are within that safety. And again, I think here we have sort of the opposite problem. Like your logo is well done here. I like that. You have kind of two different taglines happening, and there's no model information. So I would just decide on what tagline you want to go with. You know, you could even have closer than it appears. You know, super simplify it. You know, closer than it appears. And even if you wanted to have the two, like stop drinking, start driving, or have this at the top, you know, to just do it sort of super fast. You know, maybe even switch these so you have this down here, stop dreaming, start driving, or flip it, you know, even over here, and have this be in black, basically refine it a little bit, and then you could have, you know, closer than it appears, active hybrid X6 or something like that. Make sure you're having that that model information. You know, you could even move over this picture a little bit. Make sure you have the room and have, you know, you get what I'm going. Have, you know, your stop dreaming, start driving. Even if you flipped it too, flip the image and had your headline here and then your model information here. You know, I think overall both really strong starts. Some minor tweaks. I think either one of these could be a really strong piece. So that was all I saw submitted. Hopefully this feedback helps everyone. I'd like it if you guys ideally to watch everybody's, because there might be some feedback that applies to your piece as well that you can use. You know, I guess every little bit helps, right? There might be something that you didn't see that somebody else did that's like, oh yeah, maybe I could try that. Or, you know, not to steal ideas, but like, let's start playing with graphics. Like, oh, I never thought of like playing with graphics like that. You know, just to you know, to relay out, you know, you don't have to completely alter yours, but, you know, if you did, feel free. If you did see sort of an element or sort of a concept that you wanted to try to add to yours or shift in yours, you know, definitely do so. You know, again, I think overall pretty strong. I shouldn't say pretty, really strong showing from everybody. You know, I think some general critique, making sure that we're seeing all of our elements, trim, bleed, safety zone, making sure that all of our visual elements are hitting those bleeds when we need to hit the bleeds, making sure everything is well within the safety zone. Most importantly, making sure that we're not distorting, and we're also showing the full logo. So those kind of things that seem to be sort of common every semester too. That's, you know, we're just starting this, but we want to make sure that we're really paying attention to those details, especially with the logos too, and with client work. But yeah, overall, I think really good job, and looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with for your finals.